Welcome to the College Sports Conversations presented by the NCAA. I'm Trey Moses. As a part of Mental Health Awareness Month, we are talking with student athletes about their personal mental health journeys and how they have overcome adversity. This is a topic that I care about very deeply. I have my own story that goes back from when I was younger all the way to overcoming adversity in college while I was at Ball State. Our guest today is UMBC lacrosse player Tony Diallo. Tony is a sophomore majoring in biology on a pre-veterinarian track. Tony, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing today?
Pretty solid.
It's good to hear, man. So my first question, your parents, Telly and Tracy, are immigrants. How did your family's background raise your awareness of your identity at an early age?
At an early age, very, influential to a lot of different things. My parents made an emphasis for me to know who I am, where they come from. It was hard at some times because they were so focused on what they were doing in terms of providing. But in terms of identity, it was always making sure I know that, I'm a Black man in America and things like that. Also that I have a Fulani background in Jamaican culture. So there's no shortage of, meals and things like that. But there were also, conversations about, where I come from and, what that comes with, especially being in this society.
How important is it for people to embrace their culture, especially in America where, oftentimes we can get judged by what we believe in, our culture, what we wear. So how important was it for you to embrace that?
I think it was very important. I think it is a big part of my confidence, because I know who I am. I'm better able to go out and represent who I am. I know that my background I should be proud of, and my actions should show that. So when I step out into society, it isn't a poor representation. It's, it's everything my parents and their parents have worked for. I think it's important for people to know that for that reason. It gives you confidence. It oftentimes gives you a reason to go out there and be great. Is when you have people or you have someone looking after you. It gives you perspective that you need to go out there and give your best effort.
You grew up as one of only 3 Black players at St. Andrews in Maryland, and you faced many microaggressions at that stage in your life throughout your lacrosse career. Can you just share some examples of those?
Obviously all this hair, I didn't grow it out really until junior or senior year. Obviously people touching your hair and, you freeze, you don't really know how to react to that. You just kind of walk away and keep quiet. Because I went to a predominantly white institution. So I didn't really think speaking up was an option. I didn't really even think it would have any effect. So there's a lot of walking away from situations. People had their political views and, felt the need to express them at me. I don't know how to describe it, but, there are a lot of instances where you just had to let it go, unfortunately, just because, I had to make myself put myself in a mature situation. Okay, as a high schooler, I have to understand that these kids aren't mature and they don't understand the effect that their words have. So it was a lot of accepting the ignorance. And oftentimes I'd have those conversations, if it was a close teammate who had said a racially charged joke, I'd take them to the side and be like, listen, man, this is how it affected me. Because as a kid, when you call someone out, your immediate instinct is defend yourself by all means. So I'd like pull them to the side and be like, listen, like, this is how I feel personally. This is how it made me feel. And if it made me feel this way, I imagine it has or it will make someone else feel the same. So like, be mindful of that. Um, so those are like some of the instances. Nothing like, nothing else I could really like think of to share. That wasn't like crazy.
How do you think that it affected your mental health? Because I feel like as in general, I don't feel like we should deal with it, but as a high schooler and younger, especially I feel like we shouldn't deal with that.
No.
So how was it for you having to deal with that and pretty much having to stick up for yourself? How did that affect you? And then what was the thought process behind feeling like you had to stick up for yourself?
It was like harder to get up during, it was harder to get up. Like, I got to go to school. I got to worry about my grades. Okay, I got to perform on the field. Okay, I got to worry about this kid calling me that, or that girl saying this to me, or I got to worry about a teacher saying something about how I look or something like that. It's just like all these things. It's like, I don't want to walk down that hallway because I know that kid is always there, like, gonna say something, gonna do something. So there's just like a lot of emotional baggage, and anytime like there are those stigmas and stereotypes, like the angry black man, and so like I couldn't lash out because people would just be like, "Oh, Tony, you're just mad, you're just upset about something." Um, so it was a lot of feeling like I wasn't being heard or I couldn't be heard. Um, so it was I was silent most of the time. Like, I kept to myself, and when you hold too much in, like, it comes out in a bad way. And, oftentimes that happened, like, rather than having someone to talk to about issues, I'd, take it out like on the field and, wouldn't play like myself, or, off the field, I wouldn't really act like myself. Um, so there's a lot of like emotional baggage that I feel like could have easily been avoided if people had like understood like what this means, or had had conversations at an earlier point in time, understanding like the effect that their words and actions have. Um, so definitely something that I don't think people deserve to go through. I know that they do. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a lot to deal with. Just have on.
At that age, did you have any coping mechanisms maybe that you did at home to kind of brace yourself for what you were going to deal with so you wouldn't feel like the angry black man that they might have labeled you as if you would have lashed out?
Yeah, I mean, I really can't imagine being where I am, like, mentally without my sister, Yume. She's she was like who I leaned on for a lot of like my problems, and she was able to talk to me because she's older, so she had a little more experience about how the world works. She'd like give me advice and talk to me, and she also was a yoga instructor, so she knew a lot of breathing exercises and things that I could do to just like relax. Um, Obviously, like, playing lacrosse was my outlet. Um, when I like my mind was jumbled, I'd go hit the wall or I'd go do some footwork. Um, Trying to find things that made me happy. Obviously, like video games, things like that, hanging out with friends. Um, I guess the trickiest part is like when you're alone. Like, I guess when those times where I'm in like maybe a dark spot in my room, um, I try and like exercise, do a couple push-ups, or watch something. Um, or I'd start writing. Um, I just keep writing whatever my thoughts are, just get it on paper. Oftentimes I wouldn't even read it. I just write how I'm feeling and then just like throw it away. It's kind of like, okay, I got that moment out. Let's refresh. Let's move on, sort of thing. Um, yeah, that's all I can really think about right now.
Do you still journal?
A little bit, not as much as I used to, just because I've been able to like, that was a time where I wasn't really confident in how I would express how I felt like with words. And I didn't want to say the wrong thing or like say something to be misinterpreted. So putting it to paper like kind of helped me like see what I'm thinking. And I don't really journal as much. I more so like talk things out because I know I can better now. Um, yeah.
How have you worked to educate your peers on the issues you faced in the lacrosse community?
Yeah. So I joined this organization a while ago. It's kind of slowed up now, but for a while I was holding forums on Sundays, like for an hour, to like educate people, help them gain perspective. So did one on like the misconceptions of the Black Lives Matter movement, um, microaggressions. What was it? Uh, Regentrification, things like that. Uh, so also my team, like we did these talks where we had alums come and speak to Black alums, come talk to the team about their experiences. So I reached out to my coach and I was like, listen, coach, like this is who I am. You know, it's part of who I am. It's not only me, but it's part of the other kids on our team. And there's about 7 or 8 of us. You know, as a Division I program, having 7 or 8 Black kids on a lacrosse team is a big deal. And it's something that I told him like, you got to take advantage of this because like this is not a lot of people will listen, and we have that firepower. Um, so I tried to educate my teammates about those things, like how their words and actions might affect others. So that way they're not only helping themselves, but like one day when they have a family, they know how to tell their kids like, hey, you can't do this, you can't say this. Because all these problems, as you know, like, are generational. Um, so yeah.
You know, in an article you wrote with US Lacrosse last fall, you talked about struggling with how to think about things in a world where you oftentimes don't feel safe. How do you feel you've grown and grown others in the past year with the conversations you're leading?
Um, Patience, really. Like I just turned 20, and like even though I feel like a lot's happened, like I often feel like I need to take a step back and look at like how far I've come from where I was. Because there was a time where I didn't know what to think, and like now it's at a point where like I can piece things together, or I have a different or better approach to what's going on. Um, you know, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, of course. Um, you know, how do you feel like you've grown, and then how do you feel like you've helped others grow in the past years or the past year with the conversations you've been leading?
Yeah, so like vulnerability too. Like I feel like in order for someone to open up, someone's got to be vulnerable first. Um, it's a sacrifice, but like if it needs to be made, it needs to be made to get people to talk. Um, so I try to be vulnerable myself, even though it's uncomfortable. Um, I try to like use that as a mechanism to get people to open up. Um, and just like bring them along with what I'm doing. Even people like I know I wouldn't hang out with, and just like try to reach out and be like, hey, I saw this, or I try to talk to them in person about like something that I saw and just like try to gain like hear their side of it, so like they feel heard and listened to, and then I try and talk. Um, it's annoying at times, but like if it helps people understand and gain perspective, then yeah.
As African Americans, I feel like there's a stigma around mental health. but I think there's an even bigger stigma around vulnerability. How do you think, as African American males, we can work to end that stigma?
That's a good question. Because even though like I've been vulnerable a lot of times, as I'm sure you have as well, um, there are a lot of times like you don't want to let your guard down, and you feel like if you do, you're less of a man, or that sort of thing. Um, I feel like a lot of it comes from confidence and like knowing what you're saying and knowing what you're talking about. Um, destroying that stigma, I feel like is hard. It obviously, like, I don't want to be corny, but it's like one person at a time sort of thing. Where, like, if you see someone present something in a different way that you haven't seen before, then like, okay, that's one person or one mind that I like affected today. Um, so I think if we start seeing that more, like, start seeing Black men out there being more vulnerable, it could start like a new wave of like, okay, it is okay to not be okay this day. It is okay to talk about it. It is okay to cry about it. Like, because we are human and we got to work through these issues, and we're also different. So there's not one way to get something done. Um, so I think like working to work on that stigma, yeah, it's definitely like seeing it more, like more examples of what it means to be vulnerable.
With as vulnerable as you have been, have you seen any growth or change in your teammates with how vulnerable they have been or have grown into?
I'd say yes and no. Um, guys that are my age or younger, yeah, but there are those juniors and seniors, who maybe haven't so much. I'm not like mad or anything because I know I can't, get everyone, but um, I'm just happy that there's progress nonetheless. And I'm more like happy with like, of course I'd love to get those guys on board as they leave and go out, but like if I talk to the kids in my class and then the freshmen are on board, then next year when I'm a junior, those sophomores are going to talk to those freshmen, and it'll continue that cycle. So yeah, but I'm more focused on like that domino effect now, just because I know that not everyone will like be there and open up in that sense. But definitely like a lot of seniors, like I've had one of my captains, like we were on the phone for like 2 hours just talking about how he grew up and how he didn't know these things and how he like wants to know more. So we've talked since then, and it's been one eye-opening experience because like he's told me about a time when he like cut his dad off, like, dad, you can't say that sort of thing. And his dad was like, oh, I didn't know. And he explained it to his dad, and I was like, this is tough. Like, that's cool. So yeah.
You mentioned the domino effect. I think it's true for you too. If we can affect one person, technically our job is done. I feel like if we can affect one person a day, our job is done. But at the end of the day, we know we're both doing that, but we're doing it even more. Like we're affecting maybe one person, and then that one person is affecting one. It's just like you said, a domino effect. And I think it's big. I think it's big what you're doing. I think it's important what you're doing. And I'm going to, tell you to keep going. Although some people may not even give you credit for what you've done and helping them become vulnerable. I think one day they're going to look back and, they're going to thank you, and they may not even say it to you, but they're going to, say in my head or in their head, he really helped me become more vulnerable and really helped me change my life. So I'm, going to say thank you for your vulnerability now, but I'm gonna keep going with the conversation, but I kind of wanted to stop you there and just go ahead and thank you again.
Appreciate it.
May May 25th, 2020. We lost George Floyd, and probably the toughest way we could. How do you feel like this incident impacted you?
I was stuck for a while, honestly. Like, I just felt hopeless. I didn't want to leave the house. Like, I didn't feel like I had like I didn't feel like a successful future is something that I could have or attain. Like, um, I didn't know what to think. So, like that, my first forum actually was about George Floyd. Like, I did a Zoom thing. I was like, anyone can join. Like, if you just want to listen, if you want to talk, like, because even myself, I didn't know what to think. And one thing that helps me think is hearing other perspectives. So I tried just like listening to people and what they thought, because I only knew so much of what I thought, but I wanted to like understand how other people felt to like move forward from that. Um, yeah, it was a rough time, honestly, for a while. Um, just like not feeling like any progress had been made, but in hindsight, like when you look back, a lot has. I mean, especially now, um, a lot of public officials are like listening, which is important. Um, yeah.
I was in your same shoes, in a sense. I'm from Louisville, and we lost Breonna Taylor, so that's been been an ongoing thing. But it was tough, because as an African American, you think at any point that could be me.
Yeah.
I've been pulled over 4 times. I'm probably not proud to say, but I've been pulled over 4 times, and it's each time it's like I'm getting real sweaty, kind of shaking a little bit, and it's like I look at myself. I'm 6'10", I'm a male, beard, tattoos, and I'm already prejudged before anyone even talks to me. And I would, kind of the same thing, you talked about. It's, just not wanting to come off a certain way. But at times it can be scary to be an African American male, in America.
Yeah. I mean, like there are times in school where, or not even times in school, like when I'm hanging out with friends, it's maybe raining or drizzling, and like I'm wearing a hoodie. Like, why don't you just put your hoodie on? I'm like, no, I cannot. Like, it's just not something I should be doing. Even if I'm with you guys, like, I think about before I go out, like how my outfit might appear, because I don't want to look threatening. Like, I'm like 6'1", 6'2". Like, I'm not as big as you, but like I'm big enough for people to maybe think I could do something.
Yeah.
So I try to dress. I try to make my appearance seem like I don't do anything, and it's annoying to have to like worry about how I look, because I want to dress a certain way, uh, but I have to be cognizant of like how I look, um, as well as how I talk. So yeah, I definitely feel you on that.
What has been your involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Involvement wise, I feel like the forums. Um, we I've been to a couple marches, um, and just like walking with everyone was very powerful. It was an empowering experience. Listening to stories, because it was also a march for ICE at the time, and everything that was going on there. So I was listening to a lot of like immigrants, particularly Hispanic immigrants, talking about their experiences and what was going on, and how to support. Um, for a while we were doing this like Black art showcase. So anyone who wanted promotion to like get their work out there, BALO, it's Black American Youth Liberation Organization. We were like doing stories, interviewing artists who wanted to like get their work out there. So like, yeah, between the like just forums and like marches and having conversations and things like that. That's how I've been trying to support.
You know, you've also been involved with the American East Better Together conversation, which, you know, can oftentimes be uncomfortable. How do you get others to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in those type of conversations?
Dang. Yeah, that's a hard one. Just like the vulnerability part of it. Like if I feel like, I mean, it's kind of like human nature. Like if someone's like saying a lot, like you kind of get inclined to like say something. So I just try to like make them feel comfortable or welcomed in anything that they say or is said. Just like anything they say, I'm automatically like, okay, I appreciate you telling me that. Like, I appreciate that. I acknowledge it. I hear you. And I try to make them feel heard, whoever it may be, to any idea that they present. Because there's no room for judgment when you're trying to like make change. Like any idea should be taken and thought about and talked about. So I guess just like trying to make whatever space I'm in, make it as open as possible. Let that person know whatever they say is appreciated. Yeah.
How, you know, you mentioned allowing people to be heard. I feel like a lot of people listen but don't really hear. Like don't really hear what the person is saying, or even in the way they're saying it. How important do you think it is to really hear the person that's talking to you?
I think it's everything. It's everything from like the eye contact to your body language, to the tone of your voice, to the words that you say. Like every part of it is essential. Like if I'm sitting here with my arms crossed, like you're not really gonna want to ask me questions. If I don't at least smile once in a while, like you're not gonna feel like I'm in a good mood. You know, it's like people can tell like when you genuinely care, when you like are giving them all your attention, and that's often where it's like has to be like socially understanding that is important, and having these conversations. Also, like knowing who you're talking to, because by talking to people, I've just learned like they grew up in spaces where arguing is how you solve problems. Like going back and forth and then coming to that's just all they know. And while like I don't have to accommodate to that, if I know that going into that conversation, then I can approach it differently. Or any case or any case may be. But yeah, that's a hard one. Can you repeat it one more time? Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just, you know, I just mentioned, you know, how important is it to actually hear the person that's talking to you rather than just, you know, which I think a lot of people do is just listen at times or listen to respond rather than actually hearing the person.
Yeah, the whole like think before you speak is really important. So a lot of people don't take time to do that. It's a lot of reaction. It is like essential for people to like actually like hear what they're saying and listen, because then you can like act on it the right way. It's not like it's one thing to like hear them in that conversation and then go out and like do it all over again. That's just like, okay, I heard what you said. I wasn't really like listening. But like, I'm struggling to find the words now, but I do think it's like important in, making someone feel comfortable and like taking what they say and then like finding ways to make action to it. Yeah, I don't really have the words for that. That was a good question, but I do think it's very important.
You had mentioned talking with one of your captains for 2 hours on the phone. Before, I assume he was white.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for white people to seek out conversations about what people of color go through, or what people of color may go through?
Yeah, they really need it. Like, it's important, it's essential, not only to understand like Black history, but white history too. And to not just, I'm sure you've heard of like that I didn't do that. Those are my ancestors. Like, yeah. I wasn't part of that. Like, okay, that's cool, man. Like, I need you to understand what they did, so like you can tell your family, your kids, they can be aware, and we as like humans can like try to move past it. Because right now, like, that's where we are right now. It's like there's this big grudge, and obviously what was done shouldn't have been done. But now we need to like move on from it, and we need to know about it to move on from it, so that we can't like make those same mistakes. I think white people looking for not just Black people to talk to, but other cultures like Asian, Hispanic, what have you. Like, talk to them, hear about their backstory, hear what it means to be Asian in America, because as a white person, you may not think you can help, but you can help for sure. Like, understanding that this is a white society and that you are privileged and you have your advantages. Of course, like, use them, use your resources, but if you can help someone, try to. If you have time, like, try to. I don't want to say like you have to help. Like, you're your own person, you're going to make your own decisions. But if you recognize like, hey, I have this and I can use it to help people, then I think that's important to do that. Just going out there and like diversifying your mind and getting outside of a box that you may be in.
Tell us about the intersection of race and mental health and how that is incorporated into the conversations that you lead.
Between race and mental health. I think about being Black and all that whenever I speak on like my mental health and stuff, because it kind of has affected me. I think it correlates. I think it ties in exactly, like, they both correlate, because I've talked to a lot of like white people about their mental health, and I see a lot of patterns. Same with like Black people, I see their patterns. So I think it helps in when you like approach people and talk to them, because then like you kind of have an understanding of where they're coming from. You kind of understand like how much of mental health is talked about maybe in their families and things like that. So I think it's something that ties in together, and you shouldn't ignore it when talking about mental health, because it's an obvious factor. One that should be like recognized going into that conversation. Yeah.
Besides the lack of resources that we are not oftentimes given in our African American communities, What is the next biggest key to ending the stigma in African American communities, in your opinion?
Besides resources, um, I guess the big thing now is like social media. I mean, because back in that time, propaganda was like newspapers and posting stuff, and you believed what you saw. So the depictions of African Americans were put out there and are still out there. Um, so I'd say like social media is like one of those things that can help, but can also like be one of those big destroyers. Because you still have like people out there like who make money off of stereotypes, and portraying people a certain way. Um, so that's kind of like one of the big problems, I guess, is like social media wise, like what is put out there, especially with the internet. Like you can see what you want to see. Um, so I guess like putting more of the right stuff in front of people, and more so kids, because that's where it starts with, is like the youth. So I think the next step too is like education, um, reforming that, and like teaching kids from a younger age like what actually happened in America, like where all this stuff comes from, talks to them about stereotypes, prejudices, things like that, so that they're conscious of it. Um, so I think like the youth, educating the youth, and then social media platforms like celebrating Black people and Black culture as well as other cultures the right way.
When it's all said and done, what do you want people to take away most from your story?
Um, I mean, this is one path. Like, you know, use it use it as you will. Use it for perspective, but you know, keep in mind like everyone's different. Um, I guess like I don't have one of those big underdog stories, but anything is possible. Like I did not think I'd be playing lacrosse, coming where I came from. Um, but you know, embrace what comes into your life, and you know, go at it with a positive attitude, and like use it as a tool to encourage yourself, encourage others. You know, try to be that light in someone's life. You know, uh, while maintaining your own. Be conscious of who you are and your limits and how far you can go, but don't forget to like be grateful and appreciate what you have. Um, you know, yeah,
I love what you said. Um, to be a light in other people's lives, but also make sure to maintain your own. I think that's um, oftentimes can be forgotten with people with big hearts who genuinely care about people.
yeah. The draining aspect of it all.
Yeah, very much so. Tony, thank you for joining me today, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your openness and your ability to be vulnerable and to speak on the things you have been through, to speak about things that other people like ourselves have been through, um, the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say I'm proud of you and to keep going, don't stop, because a lot of people will look at your story and, like you said, you may feel like you don't have like this underdog story, but a lot of people will look at your story and take something great away from it. But I just want to say thank you for everything and taking the time out of your day.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate all your questions, and I looked into what you've done, so it's awesome stuff, man. Like it's inspirational. So I appreciate talking to you and all that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. That does it for this edition of College Sports Conversations presented by the NCAA. Stay tuned throughout this month for more conversations between current college athletes and myself. For more about my journey, you can also check out the 1 in 5 podcast on iTunes. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to talking to you again.